Good evening, my name is Debbie. I'm a Live for Love TV subscriber on YouTube. It's a very informative channel, so when you have a spare moment, please like, share and subscribe. Live for Love TV. Thank you.
Welcome back to Live for Love TV. Today's the 17th day of the 9th month of the 23rd year inside the 21st century. Hope everyone's doing extremely well out there. Now, there's a woman who wrote a book years ago, I think it was the 1920s, that's over 100 years now, Florence Scovel, and the book was called A Game of Life. I'm not going to talk about her book, but she basically describes life as a game. And I kind of see it that way after so many decades on the earth. I see life as a game. It's a game that's being played. Some people think, well, how can you say that with such serious things happening? I'm saying that's just your personal view. My personal view, just like hers, that this is a game of life. And just because maybe we're not playing it that well, we shouldn't be upset that it's a game. It's a game, and that's just my long and short of it. And how do I get to this? I say, well, we know now around the world that 1% of the population are literally in control of the whole world, which is they're in control of the other 99%. And you hear about the 1%ers all the time. Now, how is it possible that 1% can be in control of 99%? You think it would be unbelievable. It's impossible. And this is said in countries that promote democracy. Democracy is majority rule. 1% is not majority, is it? So somehow, in a democracy where people vote and believe that everyone has a say and it's a majority rule, the minority of the minority are always in charge. That's why I say it's a game. Because there's one thing that the 1% know that the 99% seem not to be able to grasp. And that 1% know that they have to get on together. Whether they like one another or not, whether they can stand the sight of one another or not, whether they agree on everything or not, they have to get on and they have to get it done. They know this. That's what they do. And that's how they control the 99%. The 99% are so conceited. And I say conceited because the numbers are so big that they believe that they don't need to get along. Everybody's got their own little cliques, their little groups, their little racial groups, sexual groups, this group, that group, all these new groups that are coming out, and they're all part of the 99%. And they argue all day long. They disagree on everything. They just don't get along. And they don't want to get along. And then they get ruled by the 1%, and then they moan about it. What are they moaning about? The 1% have agreed to get along, regardless of whatever their sexual orientation is, their racial orientation, their gender, their creed. It doesn't bother them. This particular 1% have agreed to get along at all costs. And that's what they do. And that's why they rule the 99%. So that's why I say it's a game. And it's like a game of, drafts or a game of chess. It's a game. But some people don't know how to play the game. They haven't even realized they're in a game. So they get played, constantly being played by the big boys. Now, if you're looking at any penal institution, usually the controllers of the penal institution are usually 10% or less of the amount of the population in that penal institution. Yes, they have the stronghold. In some penal institutions, they have guns, they have the weapons, they have the keys, they have the strongholds, yes. But what they have more than anything else is the fact that the other 90% won't get along. They're in the same position as the 99%. They're cliques, they're racial groups, they're this group, they're that group, they're this gang, they're Chicano. All these gangs that don't get along allows this 10% to rule over them with impunity. That's how it works. And that's how it's always going to work. So who's playing the game properly? Who has the real intellect, the real consciousness, the real sense? If you're like me, and I'll say just like me, an everyday person, I'm part of the 99%. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm playing the game any better than you probably watching this. I'm part of that 99%. But what I'm saying is that we who are part of the 99%, why is it impossible for us to oversee our differences not to be able to oversee our differences enough to get along so that we don't allow anybody to rule over us, not just the 1%, but nobody else. That we literally have what we want, a freedom of humanity, a freedom to be as we want, a freedom to move as we want, a freedom not to be locked down in our houses. Who was locking us down? You know it was the 1%. You'd have to be a fool to think it was anybody in the 99%. The 99% might be the ones that came on TV and were telling you what to do, but the actual thing that was happening was the 1%. This is what they do. Whenever they want something to happen, they make it do, whether it's a war, whether it's a lockdown, they control the whole thing because they're working together right now, as we'd say, behind the scenes. And most of us on social media, we're spending all the time verses, vices, him this, she that, war with this brother, who am I saying that? That's what we do all day long. And he's the 1% sitting there thinking, boy, this is working beautifully. Every single time these people come on and throw stones at one another and throw stones at this other group and throw stones at other group, the 1% sit there and think, we can't lose. We've got it made. We've got it made. You know, it's the same in the penal institutions. They allow the fights. They allow the gang wars. They set them up more often than not. They allow people to go into people's cells and do them over. They allow this. Why do they allow it? They allow it because it keeps that 90% at one another's throats, while they sit there as their 10% ruling over everything and basically gambling on things and betting behind your back and who's going to be the next one to get shot, to get shanked. And this is what they do. This is what they do. That's like the 1%. This is what they do. And we 99%, as I said, we 99%ers, it doesn't matter. We're going to spend most of our time watching videos that keep us alienated one from another. This is why I started this channel, Live for Love TV, because there's no one going to come onto my channel or even come into my comments and tell me that I'm going to be separated from other groups because they're this or because they're that. They can't do that with me. I've never mentioned any groups, but they can't do that. There would only be one reason that I wouldn't come together with other groups, and that would be if the ultimate reason for that group was the destruction of humankind. If that was the reason, then obviously I wouldn't have anything to do with that group. But if it wasn't that, then I'd have to find ways of working with a group. I don't have to like them. I don't have to agree with their politics. I don't have to agree with the way that they do things. But I have to find ways to work with that group. Because if I don't find ways to work with that group, then I might as well just sit there and twiddle my thumbs and just wonder what the 1% have got planned for us tomorrow. Because that's all that happens. Whether it's the debt crisis that's happening now, the cost of living crisis, this is all driven by the 1%. How can there be a cost of living crisis for the 1%? They've got all the money. They've got all the positions. They don't have any cost of living crisis. They don't have energy crisis. They don't have electric crisis. They don't have any crises. They're never going to have crisis. They give us crises to keep us busy. We're downtown. They're uptown. So while they're up on their hills, sitting down watching us, let's throw some, let's just throw a few dollars down there towards these people down there. They're going to kill one another to pick it up. They're all, kill one another. This is what we do. We don't think. I had a dream many, many years ago. I don't normally talk about my dreams, when it was as if people had come together for just a short period of time and realized that the man in the truck had all the money, and that he's the reason why we were all hungry and we were all starving. And they came together and said, let's go and get that truck and get that money and let's share the money. And as they went after the truck and they're all chasing after the truck, the man in the truck realizes, you know something? If I throw out a few dollars to these people, the ones in the beginning are going to bend down to pick it up. They're not going to jump over to keep going for the truck so that they can take the whole truck. They're going to be so greedy, they're going to bend down and take it, and people are going to start tripping over one another and falling down. And it's so said, so done. This is what's been happening to us forever. This is why we have corruption at the top levels. I don't care what country it is, whether it's the first world, second, third world countries. I don't care. The corruption at the top is because the 1% leaves it like that. They know that those people put into power positions, they're the people at the front of the queue, and they're the ones that bend down and take the money, and the rest of us tripping over them. That's what's happening. That's what's always been happening. That's what's going to keep happening, And the 1% know how it's played. Some of us know how it's played. We can't convince some of the rest of us to actually put their things aside and realize that we are all in the same position. We're in the same boat. I don't care if you're on a plane that's got a first class, business class, whatever. If that plane's going down, you're going down with it. And that's when you realize that your class means nothing when your plane starts to go down. when your ship goes down, when your plane goes down. Your class, your this, your differences mean nothing at that point. And that's the sad thing, that it's at that point that normally when people start thinking, oh, I'm just like anybody else. It takes that for people to realize that, and usually it's too late. Anyway, take care. See you soon. Live for Love TV.
People, one step more.